Okay, so does this one factor? So we want two parentheses. We're looking for, x is in the front, right? We're looking for two numbers that multiply to be 3. What times what is 3? 1 times 3, 3 times 1, yeah. Order doesn't matter. Why does order not matter? Because there's just an x in the front. If there were different things in the front, if there was like a 2x and a regular x, then it would matter which one gets the 1 and the 3, right? Order doesn't matter. Now, what signs they've got to add to be the middle, right? What two numbers multiply to be 3, add to be 4? Well, what signs do we need? How about that? Sign in the middle always goes on the bigger. The other one is optional. It needs to be negative also, doesn't it? Right? If you lose $1 and lose $3, you lost $4, right? And then two negatives multiply to be positive. So it's good. Okay, what do we do from there? Each one equals 0, right? Because if two things times to be 0, like if I said to you, hey, I'm thinking of two things, they're times out to be 0. That's what this is saying, right? Something times something is equaling 0. They're multiplying. If two things multiply to be 0, either one could be 0. The first one could be 0, or the second one could be 0. Right? Either way. And then just bump the 1 over, bump the 3 over. So x is 1, x is 3. Like that, and we're done. And they want you to type them both in with a comma. 1, comma 3. Good. All is well. I'm going to move on if you are good. Yeah, let's get number 2. X squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 0. Try that one. Same kind of thing. One factor. So x is in the front. What two numbers multiply to be 9 and add to be 6? What times what is 9? 3 and 3. And they add to be 6. So that's it. So they said each one is 0, but there's no point in doing it twice. Huh? It's just going to be the same answer twice. So the answer is just negative 3. You don't list it twice with a comma, just once, because it's the same thing. Good on that? Easy enough so far? Okay, it's going to get harder now. All right, so number 3, it's going to be 8x squared plus 2x equals 7. Okay, so let me do this one with you. What should we do first? So step number 1 is? Get a 0, huh? Get a 0. So I'm going to jump this over, become 8x squared plus 2x. When the positive 7 jumps over, becomes a minus 7. Good to there? Now, we could try to factor that one, but I don't know, would it factor? I don't even know. Yeah, I don't think it will. Anyway, I'm not even going to bother even if it will. So instead of factoring, so that's what I just put in the board in both sections for y'all. So if it will not factor, so the game plan, if it will not factor, or if it's just hard to factor and you don't feel like factoring, you could do the quadratic form. Now, last time, I don't know if you remember, it's been a whole spring break, but last time we did the completing the square thing. I'm not going to do that. I mean, you could do that, but that's hard. You have to divide by the 8. If you're getting rid of the number in the front, that'd be a big pain. Much easier. So today's easier. We're going to just use the quadratic formula. So I'm going to use the negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This will solve, this will solve any x squared. So this is for solving any x squared. You really don't even have to factor if you don't want to, but usually factoring is easier if you can do a quick factoring like we did in the last 2 problems. So I'm going to plug in. Now, have you seen that thing before, this quadratic formula? When you plug into it, you've got to identify what A, B, or C. We haven't done it in here. Have we? This is the first time, right? You've got to identify what A, B, and C are. So I bet you can guess. What's A? It's the A. So A is the first one. B is the second number, C is the third number. So just the numbers, not the x's. It's just the numbers in front of the x squared and the x and the last number. Just peel them off. So A is 8, B is positive 2, C is negative 7. So A, B, and C are the 3 numbers. And then you just plug them into the quadratic formula. Here we go. First off, negative B. So notice that formula has a negative in front of the B. So that's going to be negative 2. Good. Negative 2 plus or minus, it's two options, we'll get to that, square root of b squared. Next comes b squared. 2 squared. I'm just plugging in the a. You'll like this. This will be pretty easy for you to use. B squared minus 4 times a, which is 8, times c, which is negative 7, all over 2 times a, which is again 8. Couple things that get people messed up on the quadratic function. Notice the bar goes all the way. A common mistake students make is they think the bar is just under the root part like that. That would be different. That is not true. The bar goes all the way. So that 16, 2 times 8 on the bottom, 16, is under both the negative 2 in the front and the root. He's over everybody, or under everybody. Okay, so let's work it out. So now you can just use your calculator. So this is 4, 2 squared, right? 4. Now watch the sign. I would do the signs by hand and then just the numbers on my calculator. I think it's easier because you can just do the signs really easy. Negative times positive times negative. Those three are multiplying. What's the sign of the answer going to be? Positive or negative? Positive, because there's two minuses, right? Minus and minus. Two minuses make plus. And then just hit the buttons on your calculator. 4 times 8 times 7. Don't worry about signs.
224.
I think that's the quickest way. 40, 32, what is it?
224.
Thank you. 224. All over 16. Are we good so far? So that's negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 228 over 16. Now we got to simplify that square root of 228. So I'm going to take the 228 over here on the side. Use your calculator. Divide by, I have no idea. I just use my calculator. Divide by 2. That'd be 114. Divide by 2, 57. I think that's, I don't think 50. 57, right? 3 times 19?
2 squared root of 57.
Yeah, that's it. The 59 doesn't right.
57.
It is 3 times 19. Isn't it? 3 times 19? 30 and... Yeah, but anyway, that doesn't, there's not a pair there, so it's not going to matter. So in other words, we get negative 2 plus or minus. So the square root of 228 is 22319, right? 22319. That's the square root of the 228. And what happens with square roots? You guys know how this works? 2 for 1, right? Yeah, the 2 2's in sends 1 2 out, and the stuff left inside just remultiplies to be 57. All over 16. We're almost done. We good to there? You see how that 3 and 19 just remultiplied to make 57? And you might have stopped right here at 57. That's fine. It turns out to be fine. Anyway, can we do more? Can I cancel like 2 and a 16?
Yes.
Do I do them both?
Yes.
You got to do both. Because they're glued. Remember, plus minus, Costco, got to buy the whole package kind of thing? Yeah, so you do reduce, you do divide them all by 2. Here's the trick. This gets a lot of people. Be a bummer to get this far and mess up right at the end. So take note of this. These three numbers, if all three can be divided by the same thing, you do it. If any one of the three cannot, you don't, and you stop. So 2 will go into all those. So I'm going to do it. So it'll be, because it'll divide by 2, leaves a negative 1. Divide by 2, leaves 1. Divide by 2, leaves an 8. So it'll be negative 1 plus or minus, kind of run out of room here. So it's going to be negative 1 plus or minus, what is it? Just square root of 57 all over 8. And that's it. I think they'll let you type in just like that. Let me double check. Number 3. They might want a comma between them. I don't know. So they might want you to separate those with a comma. You know what I mean? They might want you to say negative 1 plus root 57 all over 8, comma, minus 1 minus root 57 all over 8. Let me double check. So you don't worry about this. You don't have to do that. It'll take this just like that. And we're done. So let me go back over that rule one more time. about the three numbers outside. If again, it's got to be all three or nothing because they're glued, right? So if all three numbers are divisible by the same thing, you do it. If any one of the three can't, you just stop. Questions on that?
So you make a rule?
I make the rules, yeah. No, I just follow the rules. But what was that, Manuel, about the rule?
If the three numbers are divisible?
Yeah, by the same thing you do it. Yeah, so if any one of them wasn't, so for example, what if there was nothing there? Sometimes that fools people. They think, oh, well, you just do the 2 and the 16. No, you can't. Because what's really, there's a 1. Good job. That would really mean there's a 1 there, and 1 is not divisible by 2 or anything else. So no, you would stop. That would be your answer right there. You can't do any more.
Oh, you can make a fraction?
No, you just leave it just as it is. Only if all three can be divided by the same thing. If any one of them can't, you just stop. Make sense? Because they're glued together. It's a package deal. Questions on that? So we got our answers. Here they are. All right. What I would do with this one right away is, fractions. You know what I do with fractions, right? Just get them out of there immediately. So let's just get that fraction out of there. So what will get that fraction? Before I do any x squared stuff, I'm just going to get rid of that fraction. So what will get rid of that fraction?
Multiply by 2.
Multiply by 2. Perfect. You guys are fraction pros. That makes me happy. Good. That's something you want coming out of this class. Just multiply through, and both sides of the equation, huh? Just gets rid of it. So the 2's cancel, and we get x squared plus 8x plus 8 is 0. Now can you just go to the quad? So now just plug into the quadratic formula, because that's not going to factor. So negative b, you write this on your 3x5 card for the exam in 3 weeks. Negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So plug in. So what's the a on this one?
1.
A is 1. There's no number in the front, which means 1, huh? The b is 8. The c is also 8. Plug them in. Right, we good? I'm going to jump in. Hopefully you're comfortable with this. So negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2. Are we going to get imaginary? Oh, no, I guess not. No, my mistake. Okay, so minus 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 minus 32 all over 2. Is that good so far? Y'all getting that? So this is, and bring it up here. Negative 8 plus or minus, well, here, I'll do here. Negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 32 all over 2. And now we got to break down that square root of 32, right? That's going to become 4 root 2. I'll do it over here on the side. So square root of 32, you break it down. It's 4 times 8 or 2 times 16 or whatever you want to do. Keep going. 2 times 2. 8 is 2 times 4, 2. So we have 5 2's altogether. That's what's in a 32. So this becomes negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2's all over 2. And so what do you do with those 5 2's? 2 2's in, 1 2 out, 2 more 2's in, another 2 out. 2 times 2 on the outside, 4, 1 2 left inside. How are we doing? Am I going too fast? Is this good? This is what you're getting? I broke down that 32. 5 2's. Out comes 1, 2, out comes another 2, 2 times. They multiply on the outside, right in front of the root. They just come right to the front of the root. 2 times 2 is 4. Now, these three numbers, is there something that goes into all three of them?
2.
Yeah, 2 again, huh? So divide all by 2. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. And then on the bottom, that's just a 1, huh? When you divide it by 2, right, make that negative 4, that 2, that 1. And we don't leave a 1 on the bottom. We never leave 1s on the bottom. It's considered unsimplified. Dividing by 1 does nothing, so we just get rid of it, right? There's no more denominator. So the answers are negative 4 plus or minus 2 root 2. Those are two separate answers. Do you understand that? That means negative 4 plus 2 root 2 and negative 4 minus 2 root 2. It's a shortcut way of saying two different answers. Is that good? Questions on that one? Okay? All right. I'm going to move ahead. You're good. So that was number 4. Okay, let's try another one like it. I don't have time. Let me jump. I want to go to really messy ones for you because they're in here and it's better than skipping them. Yeah, let me try to do the worst ones I can. So how about like, well, all that looking, I just want to do number 5, I guess. All right, number 5. So 1/3 y squared plus y minus 1/12 is 0. All right, try that one. Okay, so what are we going to do to get rid of all the fractions at once? 12 is the common denominator, right? Because 3 and 12 both go into 12, don't they? We good there? So multiply through by 12. So whenever you have more than one denominator, like 3 and 12, you look at both of them and you find the common denominator, which means the thing they both go into, which is 12 itself. Right? 3 already goes into 12. 12's already got a 3 inside of it. So you go 12, 12, 12, and 12. All the way across. Everybody gets one. 12, 12, 12, 12. So, and then cross cancel. Cross cancel what you can. So let me do that step with you. 3 goes into 12 4 times. And 12 in the middle. 12 cancels 12. 0 times 12 is 0. No more fractions. Is that okay? Take it from there with the quad. So I'll put the quad up again. Negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So plug into the quad. All right, so A is 4, B is 12, C is negative 1. Into the quad we go. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. So what is that? Negative 12 plus or minus square root of 144 plus 16. Did y'all get plus 16 there because of the 2 negatives, right? So 2 negatives, just look, it's going to be positive, right? I would just look at the signs myself and then just do the numbers in the calculator. I think that's easiest, right? 2 negatives are going to be positive, right? Just count the negatives. 1 negative is negative, 2 negatives is positive, right? So that'll be negative 12 plus or minus square root of, what was that, 160? Yeah, 60, huh? All over 8. All right, so let's go break down that square root of 160. Some of y'all have a calculator do it automatically. That's great.
It's 4 outside, 10 inside.
Right, it's going to be 4 root 10, isn't it?
4 root 10.
So you can see it right here because I got 16 and 10. Square root of 16 is 4. So it's going to be 4 root 10. If you can save time, great. I'll go through the formalities. As soon as I see 2 4s, though, stop. As soon as you see a matching pair, out because you don't have to break that down to 2, 2, 2, 2. As soon as you see a match at any level, 2 for 1, out they go. You don't have to go all the way down. That's usually what it takes before you can find a pair. But if you find a matching pair earlier, great. Ship it out right then. So I'm going to ship out the 2 4s, and that'll leave the 10 inside, won't it? So this will become negative 12 plus or minus 4 root 10 all over 8. See what happened there? The 2 4s inside sent 1 4 out, and the 10 left stayed in. And last step, can we simplify the 3 numbers on the outside?
By 4.
Yeah, all these, 4 will go into them, huh? Not just 2, but 4. Divide them all by 4. So divide by 4 leaves negative 3. Divide by 4 leaves a 1. Divide by 4 leaves a 2. So it's negative 3 plus or minus root 10 all over 2. You don't even need to put the 1 there. I mean, you can put it there if you want to, but 1 times root 10 is just root 10. It's not doing anything. So there we go. We're done. Is that okay? Questions I can answer on that one? Yeah. Problems. So the rest are basically the same. There's one messy one I'd like to do with you if time allows, but I'm going to go to the word problem. So basically they give you a word problem and they give you a triangle. Number 11 basically gives you a triangle that says this is x plus 2, 10. It says some story about cutting across diagonally and, well actually I better tell you, it says children cut across their lot, say walking. Give the diagram on the right. Find how many feet of walking this is saved by cutting across property. Okay. So if you're going from point A to point B, let's there's two ways you can go from point A to point B. You can cut across diagonally, it's 10 feet, or you can go sideways, on the sidewalk and down the other sidewalk, x and x plus 2. The question is, how many feet saved by cutting across the diagonal? Okay, well anyway, to answer that question, we first have to find x. So do you remember any formula that we use? This is a right triangle, isn't it? This is a right angle here? 90-degree angle, right? What formula do we use for right triangles? Yeah, a squared plus b squared is c squared, the Pythagorean Theorem. Good, good. Yeah, a squared plus b squared. And that a, by the way, has nothing to do with this a. I don't mean to confuse you. I just made up point A, point B at random, So anyway, yeah. And so when you use Pythagorean Theorem, that's what you always want to use. Anytime they give you right triangle, they always want you to use Pythagorean Theorem. So when you use Pythagorean Theorem, how do you know which one? Remember how it works? The only one that matters is C. A and B are switchable. The order doesn't matter. As long as you get C right. How do you know which one is C? Yeah, it's this side. It's the longest, huh? The diagonal, the one across from the right angle. It's called the hypotenuse. It's the longest. As long as you get C right, A and B doesn't matter. So put C in there. That's the 10. The A and the B, whatever. X squared plus x plus 2 squared is 10 squared. So there's our formula. Let's crank it out. So can you take it from there? Can you FOIL out that stuff and gather like terms? You're going to have x squared and then use the x squared strategy, meaning get a 0. Try to factor. I don't know if I doubt it'll factor. Probably need the quad. Give you a minute. Let's take a look. So it's always good to cruise around and see some of the things can be helpful. You can't take these parentheses and just square the x and square the 2. You have to write 2 parentheses. I saw that a couple times. Right? You know what I mean? When there's a 2 on a parenthesis, you can't just say, oh, that's just x squared and 4. It's not. You got to write 2 parentheses and FOIL the whole thing. Got to FOIL the whole thing. So that means, so bring down the x squared that's in the front, and then first to both be x squared plus 2x. And then the second to both, another 2x and a 4. Good to there. And now x squared plus x squared? 2x squared. It's not x to the 4th, is it? When is it x to the 4th? When we're multiplying. If we were timesing them, you would add the powers. But when you're adding them, you don't mess with powers. You just add the invisible ones in the front. 1x squared, 1x squared, 2x squared. 2x and 2x? 4x? So we get to there. Now we have an x squared staring us in the face. That's the point of this whole section. Get a 0. Right? Get a 0. So that means you're going to subtract 100 from both sides. So this will become 2x squared plus 4x minus 96. Everybody good there? Now this one is factorable, and it would be quicker if you factored it. But I noticed that a lot of people didn't notice that, and that's totally fine. Just go into the quad. It will work, but don't miss any signs with the quad. I'll show you factoring if it saves time, but I'll do the quad because most of y'all do the quad. So I'll do both ways, basically. So here would be the quickest thing. See how there's a 2 in all of them? You would take out a 2, and then you would say, okay, what multiplies to be 48? What times what's 48? 6 times 8. Sign in the middle, sign in the bigger. Boom, it's factored. Then each part that has an x is equal to 0. In other words, I don't care about that 2. That 2 doesn't have an x. He can't make anybody 0. Are you tracking with me logically? If I said to you, hey, 2 times the number is coming out 0. What does that mean? This number 0 or that number 0. Doesn't mean anything about the 2. Does it? Did I say that too fast? Did that sink in? I want you to understand that when you're factoring and you have it equal to 0, a plain number in the front means nothing. Ignore it. Do you feel that logically? Just think if I said to you, hey guys, I'm thinking of 2 numbers, and you multiply them. I'll tell you what they are. They're a secret. And then you go those 2 numbers and then times 2, and you get an answer 0. What does that mean? Well, it means one of these guys is 0. Doesn't mean anything about the 2, does it? I can make that a 7. I can make that a 3. It still doesn't mean anything. It just means one of those unknown numbers has to be 0, right? Because he doesn't have a number, doesn't have an x. He doesn't have a variable. He can't vary. He can't be other things. He can only be 2. So he is irrelevant. He can never be 0, right? So anything that doesn't have an x, we ignore. It has no ability to become 0. So we ignore it. So all we would do then would be set x minus 6 to 0 and x plus 8. They're the only 2 that could become 0. They're the only 2 that have letters, variables. So then it's going to be positive 6 and negative 8. Throw away the negative 8. Why? Because it's a real life distance. If this was temperatures in Minnesota in February, we could keep negatives. If this was Mr. Heron's bank account at different times, we could keep negatives, right? There are real negative numbers in real life, bank accounts and frozen temperatures, but not sides of a triangle. It can't be negative. So we throw, remember, math doesn't know about the real world. It doesn't know in the world we live in you can't have negative distances. Throw away. When math goes outside reality, throw it away. So the answer is only the 6. All math is doing is running numbers and saying, hey, those numbers work. But doesn't work in the real world. So keep the 6. That means this is 6, and this is 6 plus 2, 8. Right? X is 6.
Oh, because that's a 2.
Right? X is 6, we now know. So the mystery's over. Wherever you see X, mystery's over. X is 6. So that means this side. So if the student wants to walk from point A to point B, they can go the long way. They can go 6 and 8. 6 plus 8, 14. Or they could go straight 10. What's the difference in those paths? That's the final answer to the question. That's what they're asking. The difference in how many feet are saved by cutting across diagonally 4 feet. Because you could go 6, 8, or straight 10 to go from point A to point B. That makes sense. Now I'll show the quad. I did the factoring here. But it's okay if you did the quad. Let me show that real quick. So if you did the 2x squared, what is it, plus 4x plus 96? Minus 96. The quad would work. You just got to be careful on all your signs and stuff. So this is the A, the B. You don't have to do the factoring, right? So you can just plug into the quad, negative B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. So that would be negative 4 plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. Like that. And then that's negative 4 plus or minus. You can't drop a negative or anything like that. And right here, negative, positive, negative. 2 negatives, positive, some big number. What's that number? 8 times
768.
Thank you. 768. Let me show what happens here. I think this is instead of factoring. This is a little longer, but it's okay. I've noticed a lot of people like to just do the quad. Don't mess with factoring. That's fine. Negative 4 plus or minus 788 minus 4, 784. And that must be rootable. What is that?
28.
20. If you hit the buttons on your calculator, square root of 784 is a clean 28. Whenever it comes out clean, that means it was factorable and you missed it. But that's okay. We're still going to get the answer. In fact, we know it's factorable. We factored it. That's how you know, by the way, that it was factorable or was not. If the root comes out clean, that means it could have been factored. But that's fine. We're still happy. We're almost there. So what do you do now? You do the 2 options. You know what I mean? I I bet there's confusion, so let me clarify at this point. I imagine you're thinking, Mr. No, we learned you got to divide. Okay, yeah, you could do divide if you want. They're all divisible by 4, right? Divide by 4, divide by 4, divide by 4. Leaves a -1, leaves a 7, leaves a 1. So -1 plus or minus 7. But we don't stop there. Then I think, well, you did on the other ones? Yeah, because I had a root, and they weren't like terms, and I couldn't go further. Did you understand that phrase? Let me go back and show you what I mean. I want you to, this is very important. Everybody tracking with me? Look back here. Like on this one. I stopped here. Why? Well, because you cannot add 3 or -3 and root 10. They're unlike. They will never add. Right? You with me? I still got a root hanging around. I cannot go further. They will never add. They're unlike terms. Look at this one. -4 and 2 root 2. You can't add that 4 and 2 root 2. They're unlike. That's like -4 and 2x or something. They're unlike. But here, it's just plain numbers. There's no roots. They want to get together. They're saying, we're like. Let us get together. That's -1 plus 7 and -1 minus 7. That's 6 and -8. Throw away the -8. That's our x, and then the rest, we already did the rest. See the difference there? If you just get plain numbers, if the root vanishes to something clean, then go on and finish up. They will add, they will subtract. They are like terms. Whereas if the root hangs around, like it usually does, then you can't add them or subtract them, huh? So that's how you get x equals 6 by the quad. Here's how you get x equals 6 by the factoring. And then you plug in the 6 and you subtract the distances. Final answer is 4. Savings of 4. Questions on any of that? What's that? You like the quad better? And the quad's kind of nice. It kind of just handles them all, doesn't it? And you can get really comfortable with it. Just watch your signs, Be careful with your signs.
Once you get it equal to 0 and then try the quad.
Yeah.
Start with the quad to start with.
All right, let's try. Okay. So here we go. Find the dimensions. So rectangle, I'm going to draw a little rectangle. And the area must be 300. So right away, we know we're going to use the area of a rectangle formula, right?
50x is
What's the area of a rectangle?
300 inside. Side by side between 2.
Remember, it's length times width. Remember, the area inside of a rectangle is length times width. Remember that formula?
The rectangle.
So this is width and length. Right, you know that, right? Like if somebody gives you a rectangle and says, hey, it's 4 by 2. You know there's 8 squares inside there, right? If it's 2 by 4 rectangle, you just multiply one side by the other, you get 8 squares inside, right? Okay, so area formula is length times width. Great. And it says that the L must be, that's equals, 50 longer than W. L is 50 added to W, isn't it? Or W plus 50. Either order doesn't matter. Good? So area, 300, equals length, 50 plus W times W. There we go. So what are we going to do? We're going to distribute out that right side. Can you distribute the right? You know the W?
So you make it 0, no? So that would be W squared plus 50W minus 300 equals 0. Yeah. So then we use the quadratic formula.
So distribute.
But 5 times 6.
50W plus W squared. Good.
You make
Making sense? What do we now do now when we see W squared? Get a 0. Right? Get a 0. So I'm going to jump this over. 0 equals, I'm going to put these in order. It's minus 300 So you could just throw that into the quad. It would be quicker to factor. I think this one would factor. Maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. Just go ahead and throw them in the quad. Yeah, no, it doesn't factor. Throw it in the quad.
You don't factor 50 times 6?
Nope. Doesn't make the middle 50. So just throw it in the quad. So identify A, B, and C and throw it in the quad. So I'll put it over here for you. 0 W squared plus 50W. So no, minus 300, huh? So this is the A is 1, so it's negative B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. A is 1, B is 50, C is negative 300. Remember that negative on that 300, that's his baby. Any signs in front of a number, that's very important. So plug them in. Plug in A, B, and C.
Over 2 times A is 1.
So use your calculator. Watch your signs. 2 negatives, right?
Yeah. So it's minus 1450. 1450.
Did you all get 3,700 in there?
Yes.
Where did I get 37?
Watch your signs. 2 negatives makes positive, right? Okay, now you got to break down that 3,700. Actually, he's not bad. Because he's just 37 times 100, right? 37 with 2 zeros at the back. And the 100 is 10 times 10. And stop right there. There's 2 tens. You don't need to go down 2525. As soon as you see a matching pair, ship them out. 2 for 1. So this will become negative 50 plus or minus 10 root 37 all over 2. We good there? See how the 2 tens inside? Send 1 10 outside and the 37 stays in. Last step. Divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. So negative 25 plus or minus 5 root 37.
Because you root 3,700.
Now careful, we're not done. This has a little trick ending. You ready? We all good to there with the quad?
It's 121.
You all good? Everybody see what's happening with the quad? Checked your work? Because I want to show you this trick ending here.
Minus 121.
Okay, so we have minus 25 plus or minus 5 root 37, right? I don't want you to get messed up here at the end. Now, everybody good to there with the quad? So I did all quad to there. Now, what is this after all this work? Is this X, W, Joe, Tom? What is this? W. Because it came from solving the W. So right here we had the W squared W equation. And it led into all this quad stuff, right? So this is what W equals in the end. So want to remember what you got. It's W. Right? It all came from a W equation. Okay, so this is W equals. So let's write out the 2 options. So W is minus 25 plus root 37, or W is minus 25 minus 5 root 37. No way on the second answer. Because that's going to be negative with negative. That's going to be a loss and a bigger loss. right? That's got to be something negative. You did it on your calculator. That's got to be negative. Because a negative piece and then more negative. No way. You can't have a real life side of a real life thing being negative. Math doesn't know about the real world. It just runs numbers. Right? We know the real world. You can't have a negative width. So this is the true width. That would actually be a positive answer if you got it on your, we're not going to get a decimal, but if you did, on your calculator, that one would come out positive because the positive piece, 5 times root 37, is actually larger than the negative piece. And it is a positive amount. That's our width. And they're going to ask for that. But they also want the length. How do I get the length? Length equals what? We'll come back. What does it say? L is 50 longer than W. L is 50 added to W. So L is 50 added to W. And what's W? Negative 25. No, they want you to leave the roots. They don't want decimal answers. They want you to leave the roots just like I'm doing. Does that make sense, how I plugged in W right there? The length is 50 added to the width, huh? And then simplify that. 50 minus 25? 25 plus 5 root 37. There's the length. There's the width. I want you to leave it that way with the roots and all. Does that make sense on that? Are we good with all that?
So after everything we were looking for the length.
And the width. They want both. They'll ask you for the width and the length. They want them both.
The width is 25.
So these are a little more advanced word problems, aren't they? You got to remember to throw away negative answers for real life shapes. Can't be negative. Keep the positive answers and get the others.